Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and this episode is a review episode of an album that, by the time this airs, will not have been out for too long. It's a first album in 6 years that Alice Cooper has done as Alice Cooper. He did Hollywood Vampires a couple of years ago, and Matt and I talked about that on one of our earlier episodes. That one, I understand what they were doing with that one, and there's a whole story behind the cast of characters and the fact that it was mostly covers, but I remember thinking, okay, that's good. It's okay, but I want a new Alice album, and we got one. Just released a brand new Alice Cooper album, Paranormal. If ever there was a title that was perfect for an Alice Cooper album that he hadn't yet used, that would be it. And this is the vinyl version. It's 2 albums. As you can see there, there's some guest stars on here. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And that's what the back cover looks like. It's a 2-record set. Does it need to be? Probably not, but that's a thing that's happening now. EAR Music, or Ear Music, I'm not sure how you say it. That's the same company that's put out the last couple Deep Purple albums, the last couple Europe albums, and that's Alice's label now. And of course, I also got it on CD. This is a 2 CD set, which Disc 1 is 10 songs, Disc 2 is a couple of extra songs. There's something special about those songs too, and some live performances of some Alice Cooper classics. And we'll get into the packaging on this. Very traditional, Alice trying to be spooky here. It's a hard time, I find Alice is hard to take as being spooky because he's such a nice guy. I've never seen interviews with him. Anyway, this is what the CD booklet looks like. A blood-spattered font. And it's interesting because Alice has had a pretty solid, steady touring band for the last few years, but they don't play on any of these songs. Of course, Bob Ezrin is involved in this. Bob Ezrin, longtime Alice Cooper producer, collaborator, overall guru. But some of the guest stars that show up on this album are kind of surprising. Larry Mullen Jr., drummer from U2, plays on the majority of the tracks here. You wouldn't really know it unless you read the credits, but it's those kind of cool little connections that you wouldn't expect. I mean, a lot of people love Alice, and they said, can I play on your album? So Billy Gibbons' ZZ Top appears on one of the tracks here, which sounds just like a ZZ Top song. I'll go into it track by track. Title song is the first one, Paranormal. This is a song that was, of course, Alice Cooper, Bob Ezrin, a guy named Tommy Denander. Figures heavily in the writing here, guitar player, songwriter, and Roger Glover, bassist for Deep Purple, appears on this one track here. Bob Ezrin, of course, has produced the last couple of Deep Purple albums. They now share the same label, and something I wish would come this way, they're actually on tour together. That would be a cool double bill, Alice and Deep Purple. So that's the lineup on that one. That's the only one Roger Glover appears on. Dead Flies. Dead Flies is sort of an updated version of Generation Landslide. Now I'm going through these with the expectation that a lot of people will be familiar with the earlier Alice stuff. Next one, Fireball. Dennis Dunaway, a very, very underrated bass player. You may not know the name. He's the original Alice Cooper group bass player, and he has an amazing sound, amazing abilities. He writes these very lyrical bass lines that you don't notice them until they're not there, until someone else tries to play them. And this is a song that he brought in, so of course he plays bass on this one. Paranoid Personality. This was, I guess you could call it the first single, the first song I heard, and I still think it's one of the best tracks on the album. Really, really liking this one. Fallen in Love and Can't Get Up. That's the hook of that song. This is the one that Billy Gibbons' ZZ Top plays on, and it does sound a lot like LaGrange or one of those classic sort of ZZ Top shuffles. Dynamite Road. There are series, there are interviews that you can, if you type in Alice Cooper Paranormal track by track, Alice does, the first 10 songs anyway, he does track by track analyses of them, talking about the inspiration of the song. And he doesn't say this, but to listen to the song, this is kind of like the Alice Cooper version of Charlie Daniels' band Devil Went Down to Georgia. It's that kind of song, story song. And it's a lot of fun to listen to. The next one is another song that was brought in by some outside writers. A couple of guys I've never heard of. Parker Gisbert. I guess that's the name I don't recognize. It was more of a new wave song, but Alice transformed it into more of a rock song. Private Public Breakdown. Again, very much sounding like an Alice Cooper song title. I kind of wish they had treated it with a little new wave if he'd have dipped into the sort of Flush the Fashion Special Forces phase from the early 80s, which he doesn't remember, but which I consider myself one of those fans. I really, really like those early 80s albums, as strange as they are. Next up, Holy Water. Holy Water's sort of a shuffle, got some horns on there, kind of, not directly, but I kind of get, it's sort of like Some Folks on Welcome to My Nightmares, vaudeville, kind of a swing, New Orleans jazzy sound to it. Next one is Rats. This is one of the ones that Michael Bruce, Neil Smith, and Dennis Dunaway all play on, a.k.a. the surviving members of the original Alice Cooper group. This one's a good one. Give the Rats what they want. It's very street, it's very tough. And the last of the, I guess, regular songs on here is a song called The Sound of A. Don't really know what A stands for, and according to Alice in the track-by-track interview, this is one that Dennis Dunaway brought to him, and he said, wow, that's really good. And he says, well, you wrote it. Apparently this is one of the first songs Alice ever wrote, all the way back in 1967, when they first formed. And if you know anything about Alice Cooper's history, their first couple albums and their first few years, they're very psychedelic. They're very of their times. Not my favorite period in Alice's history. This has a touch of that, though, and they've, of course, updated it, so it's really neat. This song is one that he forgot writing. So that's the first disc. The second disc starts off with 2 more original songs. Again, I'm liking, the fact is original material. That was my big beef with the Hollywood Vampires album. 2 original songs on it. Oh, then you buy the deluxe edition that came out a few months later for a couple more? No thanks. I'm sorry, but that's not cool. Put them all out the first time. There. And these songs, of course, both not only feature Michael Bruce, Dennis Dunaway, and Neil Smith, they also feature Steve Hunter, who was Alice's guitar player. He was like a Bob Ezrin go-to guy, and he played with Alice for many years, starting with Welcome to My Nightmares. So this Genuine American Girl, which kind of continues in a lyrical tradition that Alice started all the way back with the song Mary Ann from $1 Billion Babies, song on Special Forces called The Prettiest Cop on the Block, and as recently as 2005 on his album Dirty Diamonds, and of course the song's escaping me now, the Ballad of, I'm not going to look it up, it's sort of a lyrical thing that he keeps going back to, and then there's another one called You and All Your Friends. I can see why they didn't make the main album. They're not as good as some of the other songs on it. This album is a grower. Aside from Paranormal Personality, none of them reached right out and said, this is awesome. But there's nothing that reached out and said, this is not good. And the more I listen to it, the more I like it. So if you're an Alice Cooper fan, I can't see you being disappointed in this album. It just may take a few listens for it to grow on you. And the rest of the songs on the second disc, they're done live in Columbus last May. No More Mr. Nice Guy, Under My Wheels, $1 Billion Babies, Feed My Frankenstein, Only Women Bleed, School's Out. He's got a great band now. I haven't been a fan of all of his band lineups, but he's had a pretty solid one for the last few years. I love the fact that they're doing Feed My Frankenstein, too, because I'm one of those people that, for a lot of people, the big draw behind getting this album is the fact that you've got the original band. And look, the original band, that's the reason Alice Cooper has a career. I'm 18, Under My Wheels, School's Out, $1 Billion Babies, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Elected, I get it. But I love some of the stuff he did after that, and I'm one of those guys, I love his trash, Hey Stupid period. I like the glam hair metal period that Alice had. It was awesome. Of course, that was the right time for me to be hearing that sort of stuff. So I'm glad they're revisiting a little bit more of that, not just plain Poison. So anyway, I recommend the album if you're an Alice Cooper fan. I guess there's not much more to say than that. Really glad that it's a new all-original album. The Hollywood Vampires thing, it just was sort of like a side diversion, a project, and I understand the sentimental value behind it, but this is kind of Alice where he and Bob Ezrin get together and they want to knock out some songs and get some guest stars in. It's, more than any other one of his contemporaries, he's been the most prolific. Even though it's been 6 years since his previous Alice album, he still had a lot more new music to come out with in the 2000s than any of his contemporaries have, and I'm glad for that. There's a lot of good stuff to discover. So there you go, for what it's worth, and like I said, I hope that Alice Cooper Deep Purple tour finds its way closer to here. And when I say closer, hopefully it hops the border and actually plays some shows in the Maritimes. That would be awesome. That's kind of been my beef. So one more time, show you the record. I know Matt and Will are watching this thing. Come on, Tim, just open it. No. And one more thing I want to show you on this album is the song order. So this has 12 songs on it, so it's got all of the original songs that are on the 2 discs here. 10 on one, 2 on the other. They took the 2 songs that were bonus songs on disc 2 and placed them in this order so that the Sound of A is the last song on the album, no matter which format you get it in. I'd recommend getting it in some format or another. So that's my 2 cents, my album review on the new Alice Cooper album, Paranormal, available now on EAR Music. And again, I recommend it. If you're a fan, can't see you not liking it. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions.